Perfection is slowly destroying Virgo from the inside, not in a dramatic or obvious way, but quietly, patiently, and almost invisibly. The dark side of Virgo is rarely talked about, not because it isn't harmful, but because it hides behind traits that society rewards: responsibility, intelligence, discipline, and the ability to hold everything together when others fall apart. Virgo is often described as the most stable sign in the zodiac: organized, rational, dependable, the one who shows up prepared, the one who fixes problems instead of creating them, the one who seems to know what to do when life becomes messy. But there is a question almost no one asks, and one that Virgo themselves often avoids. Why does the sign that appears the most put together so often struggle with anxiety, burnout, and chronic self-doubt? Why does inner tension seem to follow Virgo no matter how much they accomplish or how carefully they live? The answer lies in the dark side of Virgo, a side that does not explode outward but slowly consumes them from within. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, the planet of thought, logic, and mental processing. This gives Virgo an extraordinary ability to analyze reality. They don't just see what is happening, they see why it's happening, what could go wrong, and how it could be improved. They notice flaws others overlook. They detect inefficiencies before they become problems. They sense potential errors long before consequences appear. At first glance, this seems like a gift, and in many ways it is. But here is the contradiction that defines Virgo's inner struggle. Virgo does not simply observe life, they constantly evaluate it. Their mind is rarely neutral. It is always scanning, adjusting, correcting, and refining. And the harshest evaluation is always directed inward. Over time, Virgo develops a belief that feels logical but becomes destructive. Mistakes are dangerous. Carelessness leads to consequences. One small error can unravel everything. This belief does not come from arrogance, but from vigilance, from being the one who had to notice what others ignored, from learning early that prevention is safer than repair. Eventually, this belief hardens into a survival strategy. If everything is controlled, nothing can collapse. If every detail is handled, nothing can go wrong. So Virgo controls. They control their schedule, their words, their emotional reactions, their impulses, and even their desires. They suppress anything that feels messy, impulsive, or inefficient. They do not allow themselves to act unless it feels justified, responsible, and correct. What looks like discipline from the outside often feels like suffocation on the inside. One of the most damaging expressions of this pattern is Virgo's relationship with rest. Virgo does not dislike peace. They crave it deeply. But peace, in their internal logic, must be earned. There is always something unfinished, something imperfect, something that could have been done better. Even moments of rest are invaded by mental checklists and quiet self-criticism. They may sit down physically, but mentally they remain on duty. Relaxation feels irresponsible. Stillness feels unproductive. The irony is painful. Virgo wants peace more than almost any other sign, yet rarely allows themselves to experience it. Peace requires imperfection, and imperfection feels unsafe. Virgo's inner voice is relentless. They do not need external pressure to improve because they create it themselves. They replay conversations long after they end. They reanalyze decisions even when the outcome was fine. They revisit mistakes long after everyone else has moved on. And the most dangerous part is that Virgo believes this self-criticism is productive. They confuse punishment with progress. Being hard on themselves feels responsible. Self-compassion feels like lowering standards. Rest feels like failure. In their mind, improvement must be uncomfortable to be real. But no system thrives under constant surveillance, especially not the human psyche. Over time, this inner pressure turns into silent burnout. Virgo often becomes emotionally exhausted without understanding why. They are doing everything right. They are responsible, reliable, and disciplined. They meet expectations, They avoid unnecessary risks. They plan carefully. And yet they feel perpetually behind, perpetually tense, perpetually unsatisfied. This happens because accomplishment brings Virgo relief, not joy. And that relief never lasts. The moment one task is completed, another appears. The standard quietly moves higher. There is no pause long enough to feel complete. Virgo does not celebrate progress. They immediately look for what still needs fixing. In relationships, this pattern becomes even more complicated. Virgo expresses love through service, through problem solving, through noticing what needs improvement before anyone else does. Their care is genuine. Their intentions are sincere. They want to help, protect, and support. But love expressed as constant correction slowly becomes pressure. Virgo does not mean to criticize. They mean to improve. But improvement, when it never stops, can feel like judgment. Their partner may feel inadequate, constantly evaluated, or subtly wrong, while Virgo feels unappreciated, unseen, and misunderstood. Underneath this dynamic is fear. Fear of being useless. Fear of being a burden. Fear of being abandoned once they stop contributing. So Virgo keeps giving, keeps fixing, keeps holding everything together. Over time, this creates resentment, not because others are ungrateful, but because Virgo never allowed themselves to receive. Trust is another hidden wound. Virgo struggles to rely on others, not because they believe others are incapable, but because unpredictability feels unsafe. Delegating responsibility means accepting variables they cannot control, and lack of control triggers anxiety. So Virgo carries more than they should. They become indispensable. They become the one everyone depends on. And eventually, they feel trapped by the very role they created. They long for support, but do not know how to ask for it without feeling weak. This is how the dark side of Virgo slowly erodes their sense of self. They stop asking what they want and start asking what is correct, what is logical, what is expected. Desire is replaced by duty. Intuition is replaced by obligation. Over time, Virgo becomes efficient but disconnected, productive but empty, capable but quietly overwhelmed. In love, Virgo is cautious but deeply loyal. They do not fall impulsively. They analyze compatibility, stability, and long-term potential. Once they commit fully. But vulnerability terrifies them. Saying I need you feels irresponsible. Admitting emotional overwhelm feels like failure. Needing reassurance feels childish. So Virgo stays composed while silently drowning. They manage everyone else's needs while neglecting their own, believing that self-sacrifice is maturity. The deepest truth about Virgo's dark side is this: Virgo is not cold, and Virgo is not heartless. Virgo is afraid of being wrong about life itself. Wrong choices, wrong priorities, wrong way of existing. So they attempt to perfect existence, starting with themselves. Healing begins when Virgo stops treating themselves as a problem to fix, when mistakes are allowed without punishment, when rest becomes a right instead of a reward, when worth is no longer measured by productivity or usefulness. A healed Virgo still sees flaws, but no longer uses them as weapons. Their insight becomes guidance. Their care becomes nurturing instead of controlling. Their discipline becomes freedom. And for the first time, Virgo understands something radical and deeply uncomfortable, yet profoundly liberating. They do not need to be perfect to deserve peace.